Hi, my name is Alexander Westerhoff. Welcome to my brand new show, Homo. Homo stands for Homosexual, Homo Sapiens, and it is not just talking about homosexuality, but the human experience in general. And but today we have a gay guest, Jim Moser. Welcome to my show.
Thank you, Alex. So good to be here.
Jim Moser is releasing his book called Queer Heroes. So, welcome to my show. What can you tell me about this book?
Well, it's called Queer Heroes of the North Shore, and it's really about our journey from isolation to visibility. And it's got some mystery, some heroism, some humor, and some sad stories. There's about 150 short profiles of historical figures, community leaders, groups, and everyday queer people.
So your book stretches over a certain time period, or the entire time period of humankind?
Couldn't go back that far, would have liked to, because queer people have always been here and been on the North Shore. But the subtitle is 4 Centuries of Love, Rebellion, and Survival. So I go back to the 1600s, actually start with the Pawtucket people, who were, when the first explorer from Europe came here to Gloucester, saw many Pawtucket settlements. And we just presume that there were queer people among the Pawtucket because there's 130 tribes in the U.S. recognize that some people have both a male spirit and a female spirit, and today we call them two-spirit.
Alex, that's wonderful.
Ask him to define queer versus other terms for those of us who don't know, and we'll edit this part out.
Okay. How do you define queerness in comparison to other descriptions of our community?
Well, that's a good question, Alex. And queerness is something that it's problematic calling a historical figure queer, because the term was not around in their time, and the language wasn't there, the concept.
And neither was homosexuality, by the way.
These are inventions. But my belief is that if these historical figures were here today and understood what we now mean by gender identity, sexual orientation, and especially queerness, they would identify as queer. Most of my friends don't want to be called queer in my generation, and I myself didn't use the term applied to myself until a year ago, when I really understood the power and the inclusiveness and the grace of the word queer. It doesn't put anybody into a strict, rigid box, LGBT, and it even holds space for people who just don't know their identity, who are still bravely exploring their identities.
Wow.
So it's a graceful, beautiful word.
I am familiar with some of the socialites, queer socialites from the 20s and 30s who lived in Eastern Point, and they were John Singer Sargent, the best portraitist of all times in America.
Absolutely.
And also he hung out with Henry Sleeper at Sleeper's Cottage, and Isabella Stewart Gardner, who was considered a fag hag, and she loved to surround herself by colorful people. Isabella Stewart Gardner, by the way, she was a socialite from Boston who had the finest collection of fine art, and her house is located, it's a house museum, next to the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston.
Well, this was all new to me, Alex. I didn't know anything about the queer enclave in Eastern Point, in Gloucester. And when I was researching the book, somebody said you need to look into Henry Davis Sleeper in Beauport. And that just opened up a whole world to me. There was A. Piatt Andrew, who was a congressman who represented the North Shore. He was kind of maybe ringleader is not the word, but a leader of an enclave of queer artists, inventors, politicians.
Architects?
Architects. interior designers who could live openly because of their wealth. That protected them.
And he built the bridge that crosses to the island of Gloucester, by the way.
Who built the bridge?
Pied Andrews.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah. So when did you know that you were gay when you grew up?
Pretty early on. But I grew up in a very conservative, religious, rural community. And there was not a homosexual to be found anywhere.
That you knew of.
That I knew of, and it wasn't even whispered about. So I had to keep mum until I went to college.
So at what age did you know that something was different?
Kindergarten.
Kindergarten,
yeah. My first crush, Bob Watkins, he was so cute.
I knew I was gay when I was born. My mother kept saying, "Stop staring at men, stop staring at their eyes," because as a baby I would just kept staring at them. And I had this attraction early on, and also showed typical signs of wanting to dress up in drag. When my parents were out of the house, I put on the high heels. I did my little performance in front of the mirror, and to me it was just expression in the beginning before I knew what sexuality even was, and then I was also very closeted at school. I thought I was protecting myself by surrounding myself with women and having only women friends, but now that I know about it, I probably stood out like a sore thumb. Always dressing up nicely and wearing perfume.
I didn't do the dress up, but I did have crush after crush on boys at school,
Mm-hmm.
and I lost my thought.
But you could never find the courage to approach them.
Never.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, I didn't either until I went on vacation in England by myself, and then I finally knew that there are more people than myself out there. My mother would point out this one man down the street, because we love people watching. This is in Freiburg, Germany, and she said, "That's a homosexual." And I said, "Mom, how do you know?" And she said, "Well, it's because he dresses like a dandy. He has, a white suit on, wears lipstick, and his hair is immaculate." And I said to myself, I want to be a homosexual.
Speaking of dandies, Oscar Wilde visited the North Shore.
No.
Lectured in Salem, I think it was the Lyceum, and at the Lynn Music Hall.
Well, that's an
So
important
there's
piece
a
of history.
brief chapter. There's not much known about the visit, but so he's in the book.
Yeah, Oscar Wilde was an author in England, and he was actually arrested for lewd and lascivious behavior with a man, and it kind of destroyed his life. I think
He spent time in prison.
yes, and he died shortly after.
Yes.
So that's your book?
This is the book. I interviewed over 80 people to write the book, and it just kept growing and growing. Everyone I talked to said, I would ask, well, who should be in this book? And they'd mention another community leader or whoever, and it just kept growing. So it's 424 pages, beautifully illustrated. My friend Pat Gazemba said, you should write a book that's all pictures. Forget the words. And I took that to heart, and really, I took as much time collecting the images and clearing permission for them as I did writing the book. Yes, please.
So there are pictures in here. Oh my gosh! Wow. Yeah, it's. I should point it here. It's very colorful, and historical. Everything. I'm very proud of how you did this. You need a second volume.
I
Give
probably
me a call.
will, because there's so many people I had to leave out. That was just a bookmark.
Sure.
Yeah, but speaking of the Gloucester area,
Mm-hmm.
The man who built the Hammond Castle Museum, John Hayes Hammond Jr., was also queer.
I knew it.
And he was in love with someone who, a dashing young actor from Britain, Leslie Booswell, who also had a crush on A. Piatt Andrew. So there was a bit of a love triangle going on there. He is the country's preeminent queer inventor. He has over 400 patents, which is second only to Thomas Edison.
And apparently he built a swimming pool in his house that had windows, which was revolutionary. So he could look through the windows while the boys were swimming naked.
They did do that. There's even a sketch by the famous artist Ellsworth Kelly of Garrett Lansing swimming naked in the pool.
That's funny.
And Garrett Lansing is another famous poet from from Gloucester.
So, so Jim, what is the message in your book? Are you just trying to have the queer community read it, or would you like it to also go out to the straight community?
Some of the best feedback I've gotten has been from straight people. There's a woman who, from our church, who said on many occasions that it was such a sin that one of the families in the church let their beautiful young daughter transition into a boy. She read the book, and now she's bought 5 copies to give to other people because it really turned her completely around, opened her eyes to the humanity of queer people.
Yeah.
And the book does have a message, which is to be yourself. To be yourself, be proud, be out there. Over the last 400 years, what drove the progress was people having the courage to be visible. Be themselves and be visible.
And with today's government, what do you think is happening with that process?
I think now more than ever, we need to stand up, we need to fight, we need to write down our history or it'll be erased. There was a wonderful article by the National Park Service, and the article, there was a wonderful article from the National Park Service that talked about trans history in the U.S. And I found this a few years ago. When I was writing the book, I went back to the to look for it, and it was erased from the National Park Service site. So it's not just, theory that people are erasing our history. People are actively trying to erase our history and erode our rights.
Just like they did back in Nazi Germany. They burnt books, they arrested the queer community, put them into camps, just like they're planning to do today, starting in certain states, and then by covering up the press and everything, they just want us to disappear. The difference between 1939 and today is that they documented every person they arrested. They tattooed their arms with a number. They inventoried where they came from and what their name was. And nowadays, as we saw in Florida at the Alcatraz prison, that thousands of people have disappeared without a trace. So that is concerning to me.
It's frightening what is going on.
As a gay person and as a German.
I think having written a book about queer history, I'm probably on somebody's list.
Oh yeah, we all are.
Yes.
They started collecting our information, I noticed in 2016, through dating sites. They would.
Is that right?
Yeah, the dating sites were purchased from the original inventors, and then had a whole different agenda, and that's why 50% of the profiles on these dating sites are fake. Yeah. They just bait you to give your information, your phone number, your address, so they have a record.
What were some of the surprises he came across or challenges he had when he was writing the book?
Did you encounter any challenges when you were writing the book?
A big challenge was who to leave out. There's so many good stories, so many people that I talked to. I interviewed over 80 people for the book, and so it was hard to make the cut, but eventually it got to 424 pages, and I had to stop. Because I wanted to have it ready for Pride. I want people at Pride in Salem to be aware of the book.
Yeah, Salem is a great place to really release
Well, and
it.
I'm going to be up here for Gloucester Pride as well.
Nice. And you're going to show it at the bookstore there?
I hope to. I haven't hit the bookstores yet, but I just worked with the Hammond Castle Museum to get it into their bookshop.
That's
You asked me about surprises.
Yeah. Have you encountered surprises by writing this book?
I learned so much writing this book, and one of the biggest surprises to me was that our wonderful governor, Maura Healey, has close ties to the North Shore through Newburyport and through her mother's family. Now, Maura Healey grew up in New Hampshire and was born in a naval hospital in Maryland, so how could I put her in a North Shore book? You know, having relatives wasn't enough to get into the book. Well, when she was born, her grandmother was so concerned that she wouldn't be born on North Shore soil that she went to Byfield, dug up a little bag of soil, flew to Maryland, snuck into the Naval Hospital, and put the bag underneath the delivery table.
How
So
sweet.
Maura Healey was born above, if not on, North Shore soil.
That's a cute story. We need to have Maura Healey on the show.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Our governor's an openly gay.
The first
openly gay governor
in the U.S.
Wow. And by the way, I introduced the first black governor in the United States, Deval Patrick, many years ago.
I love Deval.
Yeah. So, yeah, he was always very, very, very pleasant to the gay community and supportive.
Yes. There's some really heroic stories in here. In 1981, on a cold November night, the Great Fire of Lynn happened, and the shoe factories just burst into flame one after another. And that was very close to Fran's Place, the most beloved queer bar on the North Shore. So Fran's Place was surrounded by fire on all sides, and the manager, whose name was Tony the Tiger, when the firemen knocked on the door, he said, "I'm not leaving." And he stayed in Fran's Place, and because he stayed, they had to put water on the roof, and that saved it from being destroyed.
Wow. And they're closed now, right?
They closed in 2016, but the Collins family owned the lighthouse starting in 1937 at that location. That burned in 75, then Fran's Place opened.
Mm-hmm.
And so the lighthouse was the oldest queer bar in Massachusetts, and the combination of the lighthouse and Fran's Place, we believe, is the longest running queer bar in Massachusetts.
In Boston, there used to be a lot more places for queers to go, and like the Napoleon Club, and
Yes.
And also movie theaters in the China district, and it was hopping in the 80s until AIDS came along, and AIDS really destroyed that whole live freely, you know,
Yes.
energy of vibe of that time.
Yes, Boston was hopping, but Lynn on the North Shore here was also hopping. We did some research a few years ago on the queer history of Lynn and discovered that there were bars by 19 different names in Lynn. Now, that's kind of an inflated number because it's one bar on Broad Street changed its name every year for 6 years in a row. They must have been avoiding taxes or the government or something.
Why did you choose the North Shore?
Jim, why did you choose the North Shore specifically in your book? Why didn't you include all of the United States?
There's a lot of books about queer history in the whole United States. And I really wanted to write this book so that young queer people could know, could connect with their queer ancestry and know that they belong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the best way to connect is with local people. Oh, that guy's from Topsfield, that one's from Amesbury, that one's from Gloucester. You know, really so the young people could connect. My hope is to donate some books to NAGLY, which is the North Shore Alliance of Gay and Lesbian Youth, and get it in front of some young people.
Yeah, there's we need to let the new generation know that we embrace them and that we care for them and that we will not be erased. Like being Generation Z on the North Shore today versus like 20 years ago. I think with our political climate, it's more difficult to be queer, but the North Shore is more embracing than any other state. But I should include, you know, Connecticut, New York, the five states, on embracing our youth, because we have much better understanding and are not influenced by the church as much as in certain parts of the country, in the Bible Belt, so to say.
And much better laws and protections.
And we have better protections, correct.
We're very fortunate to live in Massachusetts.
Yeah, apparently it's criminal to be transgendered in certain states like Tennessee and Idaho and Texas. They're really going after innocent
I would
people.
not want to be a trans person, and especially a young trans person, in this climate.
No.
And that's why I think it's so important to have visibility to trans stories throughout history. There's at least a half dozen, maybe 8 trans people profiled in the book. Going back to 1677, we don't know that Dorothy Hoyt was trans, but she risked public whipping and condemnation by the ministers and the court just to wear trousers. And so that's Dorothy going back to 1677. We don't know if she was trans, but she must have felt fiercely about the need to wear her pants to put up with that.
Yeah, it's so important to show that we are not grooming people. We were born this way, and we have only good intentions, and we are very skilled in many ways that others aren't. And queerness is here to stay, and I think that is the message. Is there any difference between the heroism of a queer person versus a straight person, do you think?
I think there is. I think if you're a straight person and you rescue someone, that's one form of heroism. But if you're a queer person, there's this whole internal transformation that takes place, and this living from authenticity and discovering who you are. And then once you discover who you are, being brave enough to be visible with that. So I think queer heroes are extra heroic. So I plan to be at about 30 or 40 different events on the North Shore during June, during Pride Month. I'll be talking to people about my book, and really eager to be at the Pride events. The Pride events are so important. Time after time in writing this book and interviewing people, people said, I felt alone, I felt I didn't belong, I had no future. Mm-hmm. Then I went to a Pride event, I was surrounded by queer joy, and I realized I do have a future, I do belong.
That is the importance of gay pride. Well,
Absolutely.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Tune in for next time, Homo Sapiens, the show about homosexuality.